At some point in time, we are all faced with the very important question of just how do you reform a rake? A dashing hero, an accidental abduction, an intrepid and brave, take-no-nonsense heroine, high peril flavoured with seasickness? It can only be one of Georgette Heyer's novels. I'm Ness Kingsley, and this is Of Words and Books. Warning, bookworms can and will mispronounce words. If you are a fan of Regency novels, you will be quite familiar with the term rake. For those convinced that it's just a gardening tool used to rake leaves, it's that, but also, for this podcast, a rake is the shortened form of rake hell, a hellraiser if you like, a sort of Regency playboy womanizing, spending money like water, and all in all being a bit of a selfish cat. It is a rake that is the subject of this podcast, and it is a rake that we wish to know how to reform. So, without further ado, let's plunge into the pages of Devil's Cup by Georgette Heyer. The Marquis of Vidal has mortally wounded someone in a duel. Apparently he's done this before, and his father has had enough and orders him to leave England, not to save Vidal's neck from the hangman's noose, but to save his beloved mother from anxiety. He makes his preparations to leave, but not before he sends a letter to one Miss Sophia Challoner. He spent some time in her company and wants her to accompany him over the pond to France, but alas, because his morals lie in the rakish direction, there isn't a wedding ring in sight. Sophia Challoner has an older sister who she quite outshines. No one, it seems, is interested in Mary's fine eyes, which have a direct gaze that often twinkle in a manner disturbing to male egotism, as Heyer puts it, and she has buckets of common sense. Mary is no fool and has been suspicious of the Marquis's intention all along. The letter that comes to her house is for her sister, but is addressed to the ambiguous Miss Challoner. She opens the letter. She sees her sister's fate. She thinks. She acts. She takes her sister's place. It is plain he has no thought of marriage, she writes in a note to her mamma. I have a plan to show him she is not to be had so easily. I like this girl. She pops a mask on and with a mingling of fear and brave resolution heads off. All is going according to plan. Vidal literally suspects nothing as he bundles her somewhat patronizingly into the carriage, and then they ride and ride. Dawn breaks. Inside the carriage she finds a pistol, and because she has common sense, she bags that pistol, though you know she has no idea if it's loaded or not, and it's too big for her hands, but she pops it into her coat's pocket and feels all the safer for it. It's the Regency form of pepper spray, you could say. Our party continues on, and Mary's getting a bit impatient. Outside the carriage it is morning, and oh, look, there's the sea. Mary stares at it, a sort of mental, wait, what, going on in her head. She remembers that Vidal has fought a duel, and things click into place. He's leaving the country, and he thinks he's taking her sister with him. The time to act is nigh. At an inn by the sea she takes off her mask. The smile is wiped from his face. Mary pretends that her deceit was part of a jest with her sister, declaring, "You need not think, my lord, that you can seduce Sophia so easily. She led you on finely, did she not? But when she found you'd no thought of marriage, she determined to teach you a lesson." It doesn't quite go down the way she expected. Vidal sort of shrugs his shoulders and says, "Fair enough, I'll have you instead." Proving that, at this point at least, he is without conscience and is basically a jerk, he forces her on board the boat. And then he turns his wicked gaze to her with a threatening, "And now, Miss Challoner." Though Heyer doesn't state he wiggles his eyebrows, I like to believe they are implied. However, Mary has other plans, or rather, Mary's stomach has other plans. "I do not care whether you go or stay, but I desire to warn you that I am about to be extremely unwell." She pressed her handkerchief to her mouth and said through it in muffled accents, "Immediately." Trust Heyer to flavour a scene of high peril with a bout of seasickness. They arrive in France. Vidal has been indulging in the cups. They are alone. Poor Mary's virtue is at stake. She is in a strange country with a dangerous man. She has no one to help her, and only her courage to rely on. Well, her courage and a pistol. Now what follows is one of my favourite scenes. "My lord," she said desperately, "indeed I am not what you think me." He burst into one of his wild laughs, and she realised that in this mood she could make no impression on him. He was advancing towards her. She brought her right hand from behind her and levelled the pistol. "Stand where you are," she said. "If you come one step nearer, I shall shoot you down." He stopped short. "Where did you get that thing?" he demanded. "Out of your coat," she answered. "Is it loaded?" "I don't know," said Miss Challoner, incurably truthful. He began to laugh again and walked forward. "Shoot then," he invited, "and we shall know, for I'm coming several steps nearer, my lady." Miss Challoner saw that he meant it, shut her eyes, and resolutely pulled the trigger. There was a deafening report, and the Marquis went staggering back. He recovered in a moment. "It was loaded," he said coolly. With a single shot of a pistol, Miss Challoner's honour is saved, and a rake is set on his way to redemption and true love, and a bit of time in a sick bed. After all, one cannot be shot without a few trifling annoyances. Later on, this book contains one of my all-time favourite Heyer scenes. Take a misunderstanding, throw in a few swords, toss in a marquis, add a large dose of melodrama and a dash of absurdity, and it's deliciously exciting. And now, my friends, to the question of, how do you reform a rake? I put a single, simple answer. Shoot him. Thank you for listening to the very first podcast of Words and Books. You can contact me via Twitter at @ofwordsandbooks or head over to my blog at nesskingsley.wordpress.com. Until next time, happy reading.